The best movie theater in the world is in a dingy basement on Manhattan's Upper West Side. The worn seats are painful. There are probably bigger screens in half the apartments in the complex above the theater. And forget Fandango, the theater barely has a website. You want to buy a ticket? Get in line. The line consists at least before 9 p.m. almost entirely of patrons who qualify for a senior discount. This goes a long way to explaining why lox sandwiches are sold at the concession stand. The carrot cake remains a mystery. You don't go to Lincoln Plaza Cinemas for the sort of amenities in abundant supply at the LOLA'S 5 blocks north. You don't go for the crowd, which a brilliant Yelp reviewer described as beyond the usual Woody Allen neurotic into Todd Solondz deranged. You go for the movies. Or at least you did. Last weekend came the news that New Yorkers dread to hear about the few remaining independent businesses we love. The landlord declined to renew the theater's lease. It's set to close at the end of January. As endings go, this one's a bit too on the nose given this terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year. When Daniel and Toby Talbot opened the theater in 1981, Mr. Talbot told this paper, "What these 5 screens represent is a supplement on a year-round basis to the New York Film Festival, which runs for 2 weeks a year only." Fellini's City of Women was the first movie screened. I'd never heard of the New York Film Festival and, despite the heroic efforts of my father, had never seen a Fellini film, when I started going to Lincoln Plaza. That was in 2003, the year I moved to New York to start college. In those dark, dreary rooms, I have seen some of the movies I've loved the most next to the people about which I can say the same. In 2005, Jenny dragged me to The Squid and the Whale. I sobbed next to Ariel during The Lives of Others and was speechless after Notes on a Scandal with Kate. Benji and I saw Joan Rivers for the first time in a 2010 documentary about her. This kicked off an annual pilgrimage to her stand-up sets in Midtown. The documentary Searching for Sugarman started James Rodriguez's obsession. We listened to him incessantly and schlepped to Newark to see him in concert. Sometimes I go alone. The Rugelach I sneaked in from bakery next door to eat during the mind-bending embrace of the serpent was the only thing that made me sure I wasn't actually hallucinating. I was one of 4 people in the theater at a late-night showing of this year's Step. It felt like being let in on a secret. After the announcement of the closing, a spokesman for Milstein Properties, which owns the property and jointly operates it with the Talbots, tried to calm outraged moviegoers, explaining that the theater requires vital structural work that cannot be completed while the space is in use, and will begin now that the cinema's lease has expired. Once the work is done, the spokesman said, we expect to reopen the space as a cinema that will maintain its cultural legacy far into the future. But the regulars aren't interested in another movie theater. A petition drawn up by Jeremiah Moss, who runs the blog Vanishing New York, calls on Milstein Properties to ensure the space remains a cinema, to guarantee it will remain accessible to its current clientele, and to keep the Talbots in charge of choosing the films. We do not want a mainstream multiplex chain nor a luxury hipster cinema here. As of Monday evening, it was approaching 3,800 signatures. If the past is prologue, Lincoln Plaza cinemas will go the way of so many other places in the city that were once called institutions. Doubtless the new theater will serve better popcorn. It might even show many of the same films. But there's something about the dissonance between the shabbiness of the setting and the splendor of the screen that made Lincoln Plaza cinemas so singular. You still have a few more weeks to see what I mean.